is the Christmas decoration. Like we're, okay, sorry. Good morning to you, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton, Illinois. Thank you for joining us, whether you're here in person or viewing this on the live stream or viewing it at a later time. We're so glad that you're part of our community. The First Unitarian Church is a small lay-led congregation located in Alton, Illinois. We welcome everyone to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. I'm Annie. I'm actually not a Unitarian Universalist, for full disclosure. I'm one of the regular speakers who comes and likes to participate and serve and just walk alongside this congregation and learn from you all. My pronouns are she and her, and I serve today as both the worship associate and the speaker who will deliver a message today. And we'll begin our worship with a prelude. An important ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. Hans Deutsch, an Austrian artist, first brought the chalice together the chalice and the flame as a Unitarian symbol during World War II. To Deutsch, his image had connotations of sacrifice and love. Unitarian Universalists today have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. Please join me in reciting our unison words for the chalice lighting. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening words today come from William F. Schultz and can be found in number 429 in the gray hymnal. If you'd like to open your hymnal so we can say them together. This one right here, number 429. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. And with that, I just invite you to join me in our first hymn this morning. We gather together, number 349 in that same gray hymnal. So I'd just like to take a moment to make a connection to our UU principles to the message today. And today's message will be about this idea of queering the Bible. And by queering, I mean taking the traditional stories of the Jewish and Christian scriptures and reading them from the perspective of LGBTQIA+ folks. I'll introduce you to someone who can be seen as a gender-expansive character in the Bible. And I think this message connects well to the second UU principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. It's a way of centering people who have been marginalized by unjust systems of cis and heteronormativity. We center and listen to these voices not because it's the nice thing to do or the politically correct thing to do, but because these voices, these stories actually have a power that all of us need to actually move towards that more just and equitable future. People who are targeted by systems of violence and oppression have the wisdom to most effectively address those systems and stories. And reading the Bible from this perspective can become a really important tool in our toolbox for dismantling these systems and seeking justice and equity with compassion. I'll invite you at this time to move into our joys and sorrows ritual and just opening the floor if there's anything that would like to be lifted up this morning from the community as a joy or a sorrow in the past week or just in this season of your life that you might be carrying. You're welcome. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Lifting up the people of Ukraine this morning. Is there anything else that wants to be shared out loud? All right. Well, I'll just invite you then just to center yourself, and we'll just do a brief meditation. So finding whatever posture or position is most comfortable for you, and just finding a way to relax into that seat. If closing your eyes is comfortable for you, you might close your eyes. And just taking a moment just to call into your heart or to your mind's eye any joys that you've carried with you this week. And just taking a moment to really breathe into that joy, to offer up gratitude. And then taking a moment to call into your heart or your mind's eye any sorrow that you've carried with you this week, any burdens that are heavy on your heart at this time. And just staying with your breath, staying with your body firmly rooted on that seat, just sending some love and compassion to that sorrow. And we'll take a moment together in that space of lovingly holding that sorrow, just to hold up our siblings in the Ukraine and all those who are in need of a more peaceful place to live, to lay their head, place free from violence. We just hold up those siblings in our heart for a moment of silence together. And again, just noticing your body on the seat and your feet on the ground, just gently as you're ready, coming back into the space. So we come to the moment of stewardship, as many of you know, and we just offer the gentle reminder that this community of faith is supported only by your giving. We need each other, and in times of trial, we need each other even more. I challenge you all not to not only consider stewardship to be about financial donations, but to also ask people to donate their time and their talent to help our church. If you can't write a check, can you donate some time to serve the community? Can you volunteer to help clean up the grounds? Can you help make repairs where they are needed? Can you call housebound members who would appreciate a call now and then to know we still care? Please donate all that you can with your time, talent, or treasure. All are needed for our church to thrive. You can mail your financial gift to First Unitarian Church, or you can give electronically. And since we're here in person together today, you can give in person as well. I believe we have a basket right here. This is a place you can give. And just to give what you will and what you are able, for we are a generous people. And please join with me in offering our offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and seek justice. And you can just add your offerings on your way out this morning. That'll work. Please join us in a hymn to help center and ground us as we prepare for the reading and the message. We will sing "We Are a Gentle, Angry People," number 170 in the gray hymnal. So today's reading comes from the Hebrew Bible, which is often, as many of you know, called the Old Testament by Christians. It can be found in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, and it's a little bit of a longer reading so that we can get the full picture of the story. So do whatever you do to just make yourself comfortable. And I do just want to offer a content warning that this is a story of Joseph. There is some violence and bullying in the story, so if that's upsetting to you in any way, if that's triggering for you, you're just invited to take care of yourself in whatever way that you need to, including if at any time you need to step away or disengage from the reading or from the message. That's always a welcome invitation to just take care of yourself. So, Joseph was 17 years old and tended the flock with his brothers. While he was helping the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, Joseph told their father unflattering things about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was born when Jacob was old. Jacob had made for him a long robe. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of his brothers, they hated him and couldn't even talk nicely to him. Joseph had a dream and told it to his brothers, which made them hate him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. When we were binding stalks of grain in the field, my stalk got up and stood upright, while your stalks gathered around it and bowed down to my stalk." His brothers said to him, "Will you really be our king and rule over us?" So they hated him even more because of the dreams he told them. Joseph's brothers went to tend their flocks near Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Aren't your brothers tending the sheep near Shechem? Come, I'll send you to them." So Jacob sent him from the Hebron valley. The brothers saw Joseph in the distance before he got close to them, and they plotted to kill him. The brothers said to each other, "Here comes the big dreamer. Come on now, let's kill him and throw him into one of the cisterns, and we'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we will see what becomes of his dreams." When Reuben heard what they had said, he saved him from them, telling them, "Let's not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Don't spill his blood. Throw him into the desert cistern, but don't lay a hand on him." He intended to save Joseph from them and take him back to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they stripped off Joseph's long robe, took him, and threw him into the cistern, an empty cistern with no water in it. When they sat down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming in from Gilead, with camels carrying sweet resin, medicinal resin, and fragrant resin on their way down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What do we gain if we kill our brother and hide his blood? Come on, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let's not harm him because he's our brother. He's family." His brothers agreed. When some Midianite traders passed by, they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern. They sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph to Egypt. So as we transition into the message, I've been thinking about this story, and I've also been reading this novel over the past couple of weeks called The Matrix. And it doesn't have anything to do with the movie The Matrix. I was a little confused by that at first. But it's about this woman who lived in the medieval ages. Her name is Marie. It's a historical fiction novel. I don't know about you, but I love historical fiction. It's like my favorite genre. So I've been really, really enjoying this book. And it's about this woman who is an orphan. So she doesn't have any family to care for her. As a woman, that's not an acceptable position in medieval society in Europe. And so she's sent to the nunnery, basically. She's sent off to become a nun and live in this abbey. And at first, she's very distraught at the life that she's been given. It's a very poor abbey. They don't have a lot of resources. It's a very hard life. A lot of hunger and pain the sisters are suffering through. And she takes what she's been given and she finds a way to kind of make a way out of no way. She builds herself up as this powerful abbess over her time at the abbey, and she uses her leadership to create a sustainable community for women. And she brings in scholarly training, and she recruits all kinds of people to learn crafts and trades, and they become this self-sustaining place for women in a time where that wasn't really a thing. And part of the story is that she's described as this woman who's very unfeminine. She's not able to be married off because she's not feminine enough to fit into that role in society. And so she uses her place as this masculine woman to create something beautiful and powerful and sustainable for herself and for other women. And I really love this story because I think it speaks to how throughout history, there have always been people in all societies and civilizations and cultures who don't express their gender in ways that are acceptable for the culture and the time that they live in. And today's story that we heard from the Hebrew Bible is also a story that can be seen in that light, even though we may not have been trained to think of it that way. And different civilizations and societies have had different gender roles that were very much acceptable and expressed in different times and places. This current reality that we live in, where we say that gender has to be this one universal thing that is policed and targeted, it's just a lie to say that that's the way it's always been. There are plenty of places and peoples around the world that have celebrated a diversity of gender throughout time. And so would we see in our current climate the way that lawmakers are targeting trans youth and making it so that they don't even have the right to use the bathroom they need to use, or to play on the sports team that they want to play on, or just to see themselves reflected in the curriculum of their schools. This worldview that says that gender is this one universal thing, it has to fit into this box. It's just not true. It's actually really historically inaccurate to say that it's always been that way. And I know that you all already know that. This is a community that, even just in the little bit I've gotten to know you, I can see that you're so committed to inclusion. You're so committed to really holding a sanctuary for these kinds of truths. So I know I don't have to convince you of that. But today, as being somebody that I work with the Bible a lot, I'd like to offer you some tools for your toolbox on how to kind of dismantle this worldview that toxic Christianity can spread. And as I've said in the past, I know maybe some of you have heard me say it, so it might be annoying to hear me say it again, but I might be meeting you for the first time today. So I do want to say that I always acknowledge, Christianity and the Bible have been used to harm and hurt so many people in so many ways. And that's not an abstract idea. That's right here in the room. We have been harmed, many of us, by religion. And so I just want to honor that. And if me bringing out the Bible is hard for you or anything like that, I totally honor that. And it's not my intention to try to convert you or get you to submit to a particular belief system at all. I see the Bible as really holding up this worldview. It's almost like the Bible is like the concrete foundation underneath the worldview that we live in. Its words have been twisted and molded to hold up the society and the culture and the values that we hold in today's society. And so regardless of your religious identity or your spirituality, having another way to look at the Bible and to read the same story with new eyes is a powerful tool for your toolbox as you navigate these turbulent times that we live in. So I just want to say that that's kind of my invitation today, is to use these tools that I've found to kind of put a chink in that armor, to be able to kind of almost like a screwdriver or a hammer and a nail to kind of dismantle this house of toxic Christianity that has hurt so many people. And as we move through the story, I do just want to say as well, I'm limited. I'm one person, and my interpretation is not the interpretation that everybody has to have. And I'm a cisgendered woman, so I don't have a full lived experience of being gender expansive in this world, and that limits my perspective as well. So I come to this with humility and with curiosity. But let's go ahead and get into the story. So you might be familiar with the story we heard today with Joseph. Maybe if you came out of a Jewish or a Christian context, you've heard the story growing up, or I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical comedy, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, which apparently was really popular in the 70s. I have to admit I've never seen it, but my dad has this thing for singing musicals around the house. So I remember hearing about it when I was a kid. I've never actually seen the whole movie. But when I was getting ready to write this, I did go and watch some of the scenes on YouTube, and it is a wild rendition of the story. So I can say that. But whether you're familiar with the story or not, it's a part of our cultural imagination. And I just want to raise the possibility And the question, and I'm just going to pose it to you as a question, and you can decide for yourself. Can we think of Joseph as a gender non-conforming person? Can we think of him and his story as an LGBTQ story? Now, you may not totally see it right away, and I didn't either, but it actually was a biblical scholar named Peterson Toscano who pointed this out to me. The ways that Joseph kind of transgresses gender in the story. So the 12 brothers in the story, Joseph is born into this like big blended family that's navigating all these things. And that's where we get some of that jealousy from. They're kind of worried about who's going to get the inheritance from Jacob, the father, the patriarch. And so Joseph's brothers are very jealous of him because he has a special love and a special favor from his father. And it's really powerful because Joseph kind of like just owns it. He's got this special gift of being a dreamer, right? And he kind of uses that and flaunts that and shows that off to kind of inflame his brother's envy and jealousy a little bit more. And this is part of the foundation of how Israel will see itself. The 12 brothers become the foundation of the 12 tribes of Israel in the rest of the book. And there's this one day where Joseph's father gives him a garment. Now, some translations into English call it a coat of many colors, and that's why in the modern musical we get the Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? But other translations might call it a long robe or a robe with long sleeves. And the phrase in the original Hebrew is actually ketonet pasim. So biblical translators often put a little footnote with this one saying, oh, we don't really know what it really means. But one of the ways that we get clarity in the Bible when we don't know what something means, when there's a word that doesn't have a clear translation, is we look for other places in the text where we see that word. Like, what does it mean in those other stories? And this word for whatever it is that Joseph is wearing, ketonet pasim, is only found in one other place in the whole Hebrew Bible, in the whole Old Testament. And it's found in the story of Tamar, if you've ever heard of it. It's in the book of 2 Samuel, and it's actually a very violent story. It's a story of sexual violence and family dynamics. It's very, very tragic. But in Tamar's story, she is wearing a ketonet pasim, the same thing that Joseph is wearing in the story in Genesis. And the cool thing about Tamar's story is that it actually specifies what it is that she's wearing. It says a little bit more descriptive about it. And it says literally, word for word, she was wearing a ketonet pasim because that was what the virgin princesses wore as garments. It's a princess dress. Now, this doesn't have to be the only interpretation. I'm not out here to say there's only one way to read the Bible. But it's pretty hard to deny that in these two places that are the only two places where we find this word, ketonet pasim, it's kind of hard to deny that that's one possible interpretation. What does it mean to say that Joseph's father gave him a princess dress and that he wore it proudly? In this story, Joseph's brothers have an irrationally angry reaction to who he is and what he is wearing. They do violence to Joseph, but they also do violence to the garment he's wearing. We didn't hear this part because I didn't want the story to go on for too long, but later in the text, they actually take the garment and soak it in animal blood in order to be able to sort of tell the story that, he's been hurt when they go back to their father. But if they were just jealous of him for having this special garment, if they wanted it for themselves, why wouldn't they have kept it in good condition? Why wouldn't one of them have worn it for themselves away from the scene of the crime that day? There was something in them, in their very core, that was just deeply offended by what Joseph was wearing. And I think like many queer and gender nonconforming people, Joseph is a victim of bullying and repressive violence. He's stripped of his clothing. He's thrown into a cistern, which is like a well in the desert. Ultimately, he's banished from his family, from his hometown. He's sold into slavery. And I have to say, I think Joseph's story is a very queer story. He's a dreamer. He's rejected by his family. He's bullied. He's beaten up for being who he is. Not to say that those are the only experiences that LGBT folks have, but they are experiences that many do. He has to leave his hometown, and the story actually continues for Joseph. He ends up rising to power in Egypt. He gets close to Pharaoh, and he becomes second in command in the kingdom. And so I see that as well. Like, a lot of LGBT folks have to leave their towns or their communities, and they find a better, more fabulous, more life-fulfilling life for themselves in a bigger city, in a bigger community. I think Joseph's story has really good news for all of us, actually, even, regardless of what your gender identity or your sexual orientation is. It's a story that shows us that if you don't fit into the mold of how your community of origin says you're supposed to be, you can still find a way to a community that will accept you. And the divine is with you along that entire journey. Years later in the story, Joseph is reconciled with his brothers when they come to Egypt looking for food during a famine. At this point, Joseph has power over his brothers. He's in charge, and they're in need of the food that he has access to. And he could do whatever he wants. He could crush them in punishment for how he was treated. But it's interesting, even his response to them when they come asking him for food and when they start sharing their remorse with him, it's not one that fits the traditional masculine values of the day, which would be an eye for an eye and revenge. He actually tries to bring the family together and reunite everyone and bring his youngest brother, who he's never met, into the family. And it's a very maternal reaction to what's happening. It's very motherly. And there's this beautiful moment at the end of the story where Joseph's brothers are weeping in remorse for how they have treated him. And Joseph says to them, "Don't be afraid." He tells them, "You planned something bad for me, but God produced something good from it. What you did for my harm, God did for my good." And this is not saying that the divine punishes us or makes us suffer to teach us a lesson. That's not how I interpret this. But it is saying that when harm does happen to us, the divine can pull healing and goodness through it. It's saying that no matter what you have been through, whatever trauma, marginalization, bullying, estrangement, or suffering that you have experienced, there is an intelligent life force that pulses inside of you and all of life that can transform that pain that you've experienced into something beautiful, into growth, into gifts that can be shared for the good of the world. It's kind of like the whole Beyonce thing, if you're a fan, that people who get a lot of lemons in life are really good at making really tasty lemonade. The universe can make a way out of no way. It's what the story is telling us. So when you leave this place, this sanctuary, and you go out and you find yourself reading the news and seeing the attacks on queer and trans youth, if you're experiencing those attacks yourself in your own life, and when people try to tell you that the Bible says that those attacks are the right thing, that those attacks are done in the name of family values or protecting children or women, you can root firm in a wisdom that is much deeper and much wider. You can take out your toolbox and you can chip away at these life-limiting ideologies and beliefs. And you can know that just like Joseph in his princess dress, you are holy and sacred and beautiful exactly as you are. So I just want to conclude there, and I want to open it up and offer space if there are other reflections or questions. You might have some thoughts about what tools you already have in your toolbox, how this interpretation is similar or different to other interpretations you've heard, or just anything that might have stood out for you, anything you might even disagree with or have some weird feelings about. It's all welcome. If there's anybody who would like to share your own thoughts this morning. No problem.
And I'm an alcoholic. I went to an AA meeting this morning. I go to AA meetings on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. And I told the guys that I wanted it to be my home group because it gives me a good reason to skip church. I was supposed to be the chairman for March, but back in February we were having a conscience meeting, and I forgot that the conscience meeting was going on and left. And then I remembered and went back, but by that time they'd moved me to April. So at this meeting this morning, it's an all men's meeting, and our reading was the chapter 2 wives. In our meeting, we have one man that's a Jew. He doesn't go to synagogue, but and almost everybody else was raised Catholic. And then there's me, who was Missouri Synod Lutheran. There was a man, Michael, who was sitting right next to me, who almost has a year in AA. And I just got 6 months last week. They gave me this piece of duct tape. Anyway, we read the couple of pages in the part to the wives, and then we discussed it. And Michael told about he has a significant other. He has a man that he's in love with and true to. And I don't know his name, but his mother died back around Christmas time, and Michael arranged the whole funeral and music and everything for the funeral. And somehow in the whole process of this thing, he cheated on his significant other. So he had a little, and he said, and it practically drove him back to drink, the guilt over having done this. Michael's the only gay person in this group, and he didn't let this infidelity ruin him. Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting. It wasn't my turn to talk, but I wanted to make this service today. So I said, I'm an alcoholic named Mark, and I'd like to say about this reading that it's not gender specific. This is for anybody that has an alcoholic in their life, this is how you get the alcoholic. Here are some suggestions of how you can get your alcoholic husband or son or friend to see the light of day. It's a disease, and you got to take the cure for it. Okay.
I want to just leave a little more room if anybody else. Thank you so much. If anybody else wants to just share anything. Okay, wonderful. Blue Boat Home will be our final hymn, number 1064 in the blue hymnal. All right, time for announcements. I've got one announcement here that next Sunday, a former member named Lorna McElhone and her husband Roger Thorogood will be attending the church service. So she would like to be able to visit with her church friends, and folks are planning a lunch at the Old Bakery Beer Company for 11:30 next Sunday. So that's 11:30 next Sunday. There will be a lunch for Lorna and Roger. If you want to come, please RSVP to Mary Johnson by next Wednesday. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community? All right. Well, with that, I'm sorry, y'all, for the fishes here. You all have something. Okay. Thanks for your grace with my awkwardness today. So we extinguish the candle together as we recite the prayer up on the screen together. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of the flame until we meet again. And our closing words come from a UU author named H.P. Rivers in a blessing called Blessed Are the Queer. Blessed are the wanderers seeking affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pulpits, pews, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the queer, disciples of truth, living, breathing, sacred reflections of divine love. Thank you for being here today. We'll close with an instrumental.